Okay, so you want to like really get a grip on something super important,
Uh-huh.
like how the whole world of business kind of fits together, on a global scale.
Right, right.
But then you think about all those like dense articles and reports you have to wade through,
Yeah,
and it can be a bit daunting, to be honest.
it can.
So that's where we come in.
Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive, where we basically take a whole mountain of information and we sift through it all to bring you those key insights
Exactly.
and hopefully, spark a few of those aha moments along the way.
Definitely.
And today we're diving deep into business and globalization.
Yes. I know when you hear globalization, you might be thinking about, all those complicated theories and
Mhm.
big international meetings. It can
Mhm.
be pretty complex, but
Yeah.
we've actually been looking at a bunch of resources that are designed for, believe it or not, GCSE students,
Oh, wow.
but don't underestimate them. These materials actually lay out the essential groundwork for understanding this really interconnected global economy,
Right.
which, let's be honest, shapes pretty much everything we see in business today.
It really does.
Yeah.
So think of this as like building a really solid base without getting bogged down in all the jargon.
Exactly.
So, according to our sources, what exactly is globalization?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the core idea here is the increasing interconnectedness of countries and businesses.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like the world is, shrinking in a way.
Yeah.
More trade happening between countries,
Right.
ideas spreading faster than ever,
Yeah.
and even people moving around more for work and, well, just life in general.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is making the economies of different countries much more linked than they used to be.
So intertwined.
Intertwined, yeah, that's the word.
Okay, so it's a pretty fundamental shift
Oh,
that's not
absolutely.
just some passing trend.
No, it's a really big deal with huge consequences for how businesses operate and compete.
So where do we even begin with something this big?
Well, our mission in this deep dive, I think,
Yeah.
is to pull out those most critical aspects of globalization, the ones that are relevant to businesses right now.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
We're going to explore the driving forces behind it, the strategies UK businesses use to deal with this global landscape, the always interesting topic of exchange rates,
Oh, yeah.
the advantages and disadvantages it brings to companies, the effects on local economies and communities, and the ways businesses actually get involved globally.
Right, okay, so like a pretty comprehensive look at the whole thing.
That's the plan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get started with a really basic question.
Okay.
Why is globalization even happening in the first place?
Right. Like, it's not just some random thing, is it?
Yeah.
Our sources point to several key factors that are driving this interconnectedness.
Okay.
And the biggest one, the first one that comes up again and again,
Yeah.
is technological progress.
Makes sense.
I mean, just think about the internet.
Yeah.
It's totally revolutionized how we communicate, right?
Uh-huh.
Instant connections, sharing information across the entire planet.
Yeah.
That is a game changer for businesses operating internationally.
Yeah. No borders anymore, essentially. And
Yeah.
it's not just information flying around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, we're also talking about actual physical stuff, moving around
Totally.
products, goods.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Things like air freight and those massive cargo ships you see
Yeah.
have made it way more efficient and cheaper to move things between countries.
Right.
It's paved the way for these really complex global supply chains.
So technology is a huge part of the story.
Definitely.
What else is going on?
Another big factor is the reduction in trade barriers.
Okay.
So more and more governments around the world have been lowering tariffs.
So, like, taxes on imports?
Exactly. And quotas.
Which are limits on how much you can import.
Got it.
Right?
And then you've got the growth of free trade agreements
Mm.
between countries, encouraging more international trade by making it simpler and cheaper for businesses to buy and sell across borders.
So they're, like, actively making it easier.
Yeah, basically trying to eliminate or at least significantly reduce tariffs and quotas
Right.
to make trade smoother and cheaper.
Okay, so governments are playing their part.
They are.
What about the really big companies?
Ah, yes, the multinational corporations, the MNCs.
Yeah. What role do they play in all this?
Oh, they're crucial.
Okay.
These huge companies that operate in tons of countries.
Yeah.
They're always looking for new markets to sell their stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they also want to find places where they can make things cheaper.
Right, like lower costs, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So their presence all over the place.
Yeah.
And their constant need to expand.
Yeah.
Well, that further connects economies across the globe.
They're, like, the driving force.
In many ways, yes.
And then sometimes it just comes down to businesses needing to grow, right?
Absolutely.
They just hit a point where,
You reach a saturation point in your home market.
yeah.
You need to find new customers, fresh opportunities.
So you have to go global.
Exactly. And that just fuels globalization even further.
Right. Okay. So we've got technology making things easier, governments removing barriers,
Huh.
big companies expanding globally, and the natural desire for businesses to grow.
Yeah,
That gives us a pretty good idea of why this is all happening.
it does.
But let's focus on the UK for a moment.
Sure.
How do UK businesses actually compete in this global arena?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And our sources, particularly those based on the AQA GCSE Business syllabus,
Okay.
highlight a few key strategies.
Okay, let's hear them.
One important approach is a focus on, better design and innovation.
Okay.
The UK has a good reputation for creativity,
Yeah.
especially in things like fashion and technology.
Sure.
So by investing in research and development,
Yeah.
UK companies try to create really distinctive products that can stand out globally.
Yeah. You think of some well-known British brands, and you do get that sense of like unique design or a sort of technological edge.
Exactly.
Oh.
Another crucial element is offering higher quality products.
Okay.
A lot of British brands, especially in luxury goods,
Yeah.
have this long history of craftsmanship, really focusing on the details.
Right. Attention to detail. Yeah.
And this allows them to charge higher prices
Yeah.
and build a loyal customer base internationally.
Okay. So it's not always about being the cheapest.
Not necessarily, no.
It's about offering something like superior.
Exactly.
But what about price?
Yeah.
Surely that's still a major factor.
Of course, it's always a factor.
Yeah.
Now, UK businesses might find it harder to compete purely on price.
Because of higher costs here.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But they can focus on what we call competitive pricing
Okay.
by being really efficient in their production processes.
Okay.
And by, sourcing materials from cost-effective locations.
Being smart about it.
Exactly.
Okay, so efficiency and smart sourcing.
Right.
And it's not just about the product itself, is it?
No.
It's also about how you market it.
Absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Adapting the whole marketing mix.
So 4 Ps, right? You know them.
Product, price, place, promotion.
There you go.
Yeah.
So aligning that with local tastes and preferences in different countries is essential.
So you can't just assume what works here will work everywhere.
No way.
Right. A one-size-fits-all approach won't cut it.
Nope.
And sometimes just the fact that something is British can be a selling point,
Absolutely.
like the brand itself.
Yeah, for certain products, the British brand is a real asset.
Think like Scotch whiskey
Exactly.
or, traditional British clothing.
That heritage, that reputation for quality,
Yeah.
that's a big draw for international customers.
Okay, so focusing on design and innovation, offering high quality, being efficient with pricing, adapting their marketing, and leveraging the British brand.
Uh-huh.
Those are some of the key ways UK businesses try to compete on the global stage.
They are.
Okay, let's move on to something that can really make or break international business. Okay.
Exchange rates.
Yes.
Now, this always sounds a bit complicated.
I know, it can seem that way,
Yeah.
but the basic idea is pretty simple.
Okay.
It's basically just how much one currency is worth compared to another.
So like £1 equals $1.2 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The key thing is these rates aren't fixed.
right.
They go up and down all the time.
Yeah.
And those changes have a real impact on businesses that are buying and selling internationally.
Okay, so what happens when a currency's value goes up or down?
Well, when a currency appreciates or strengthens.
So it's worth more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So let's say the pound gets stronger against the dollar.
Okay.
For a UK business that's selling stuff to the US,
Yeah.
their products basically become more expensive for American customers. And that could mean they sell less.
Right.
But for a UK business buying things from the US,
Yeah.
imports become cheaper.
Because their pound goes further.
Exactly. They can buy more dollars with their pounds.
Huh? So, strong currency, good for importers, maybe not so good for exporters.
That's the general idea.
Yeah.
There's actually a handy way to remember this.
Okay.
The mnemonic spiced.
Spiced.
Strong pound. Imports, cheaper exports, dearer.
Oh, right. I've heard of that.
It's a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, let's look at the opposite scenario.
Okay.
What happens when a currency depreciates or weakens?
So if the pound weakens against the euro, that would mean UK products become cheaper for European customers,
Exactly.
which could boost exports, right?
It could, yeah.
But then things we buy from Europe would get more expensive.
That's right. Imports would cost more because the pound buys fewer euros.
So weak pound, good for exporters, bad for importers.
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay, so it's like a seesaw,
Kind of, yeah.
up and down.
And those ups and downs
Yeah.
can really mess with international businesses' plans.
Yeah,
Make their costs and revenues less predictable.
right. It's a risk factor they have to manage.
Yeah, they really need to keep an eye on it.
Oh, absolutely.
They can't just ignore it.
No, they need to be aware of these fluctuations and understand how they affect profitability.
Yeah, it affects everything.
Their pricing, their sourcing decisions, everything.
Okay, so we've looked at why globalization is happening and how businesses deal with exchange rates.
We have?
Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of globalization's impact on businesses themselves.
Okay.
Starting with the good stuff,
Right.
the advantages.
Right, the upsides.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest advantages,
Yeah.
and we touched on this earlier,
Uh-huh.
is access to much larger markets.
Some with customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of being limited to their own country,
Yeah.
businesses can reach buyers all over the world.
And that leads to...
Increased sales, huge growth opportunities.
Makes sense. More customers, more potential revenue.
That's the logic. What else is good about going global?
It gives businesses access to a wider range of resources,
Okay.
often at better prices.
Like,
Raw materials, components, even labor, from countries where those things are cheaper or more readily available.
right, lower costs.
Exactly, which means bigger profits.
Okay, that's a big one.
It is.
What about producing for a global market?
Yeah.
Does that affect efficiency?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It can lead to what we call economies of scale.
Okay.
So, as a business ramps up production to serve a larger market,
Yeah.
the cost of making each individual item actually tends to go down.
So producing more actually makes each product cheaper to make.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's about buying materials in bulk, using more efficient large-scale production methods.
Right, and spreading those fixed costs over more units.
You got it.
That's a big advantage.
It is.
What about innovation?
Ah, yeah.
Does globalization affect that?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, being exposed to international markets and competition from all over the world,
Yeah.
it really pushes companies to innovate.
Okay.
They have to adopt new technologies, learn from others.
Keep up with the competition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they have to develop better products and services to stay ahead.
So it's a kind of pressure that drives progress.
It is, yeah.
Are there benefits in terms of like staffing, skills, that sort of thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Globalization gives businesses access to a much bigger pool of talent.
Right.
They can recruit skilled workers from different countries.
So new expertise, fresh perspective.
Exactly.
Makes
So
sense.
countries have different strengths, different specializations, so
Yeah.
you can tap into that.
Yeah, definitely.
And there's another upside.
What's that?
Operating in multiple countries can help businesses diversify their risks.
Oh, right. So if one country's economy is struggling,
Yeah,
their performance in other markets can kind of balance things out.
exactly. It's like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Ah.
Spreading your operations geographically gives you more resilience.
Okay, so bigger markets, access to cheaper resources, economies of scale, innovation driven by competition,
Yeah.
a wider talent pool, and diversification of risk.
You got it.
Those are some pretty compelling advantages.
They are.
But it's not all sunshine and roses, is it?
No, definitely not.
There must be some downsides.
Oh, there are.
Okay, let's hear them.
Well, one of the biggest challenges is increased competition.
Okay,
Businesses aren't just competing with local companies anymore.
right.
They're up against rivals from all over the world,
Yeah,
some of whom might have lower costs
yeah.
or more innovative products.
Right, so that puts pressure on prices
It does.
and makes it harder to stay profitable.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's understandable.
yeah, it's a whole new ballgame.
What about the practicalities of managing a global operation?
Well, that can be a real headache.
Yeah.
Managing these complex global supply chains,
Mm-hmm.
it's a logistical nightmare.
Right.
Coordinating production and distribution across multiple countries,
Yeah.
quality control issues,
Yeah.
higher transportation costs.
Right. It's a lot to handle.
It is much more complex than just dealing with domestic suppliers and customers. And we talked about this before, but exchange rates, those must be a constant worry.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
Those unpredictable changes can really hit profitability.
another layer of risk.
Exactly.
What about dealing with different rules and regulations in different countries?
Oh, that's another challenge.
Yeah.
You have to navigate all these different legal and political systems.
Yeah.
It's time-consuming, complex,
And potentially risky.
Very risky.
What's acceptable in one country might be totally illegal in another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need a lot of resources just to stay compliant.
Okay, and it's not just laws, is it?
No.
Culture matters too.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Different cultural norms, different consumer preferences.
You have to adapt.
You have to. If
Yeah.
you don't understand the local culture,
Yeah.
or if you fail to adapt your products or your marketing,
Yeah.
it can really damage your brand.
Makes sense.
So another layer of complexity.
Different languages, customs, tastes.
It's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
And all of this can lead to communication problems.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, managing operations across time zones, languages, cultures.
Yeah.
It's bound to create challenges.
It's a lot of coordinating, translating, and just like understanding each other.
It is.
Okay, so while going global has some great rewards,
Yeah,
it also has its fair share of challenges.
definitely.
Increased competition, the complexities of operating globally, financial risks, legal hurdles, cultural differences, and communication barriers.
That's a good summary.
Businesses really need to weigh all of that carefully.
They do.
Now, let's shift focus a bit.
Okay.
How does globalization affect local economies and communities?
Right.
Not just the businesses themselves.
Yeah, that's an important point.
There are both good and bad effects here, right?
Absolutely.
Let's start with the positives.
Okay, so one of the biggest benefits is job creation.
Okay.
Through foreign direct investment,
Yeah.
and local businesses expanding into new markets.
Right.
This creates jobs, and that has a ripple effect. People have more money to spend, which boosts the local economy,
Yeah.
and it generates more tax revenue.
So it's not just about the number of jobs.
No, it's also about the investment, the new ideas, the technology that comes in.
Right. The whole package.
Exactly.
And consumers benefit too, don't they?
They do, yeah.
In what ways?
Well, they usually get more choice.
More products and services to choose from?
Exactly. And often at lower prices because of international competition and more efficient supply chains.
Yeah. I mean, think about the range of stuff you can buy in shops these days.
It's incredible.
Most of it comes from all over the world.
It does.
And it's not just about material goods, is it?
No, you're right.
There's a cultural side to it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Globalization can lead to more cultural exchange and understanding.
People are exposed to different cultures, to different ways of thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can create a more diverse and interconnected society.
And potentially break down some stereotypes.
Yeah. And promote tolerance.
That's a good thing.
It is.
And in a lot of developing countries,
Yeah.
globalization has helped to improve living standards through economic development and access to better goods and services.
Right.
So it can be a real force for good.
It can.
And it can also help spread new ideas and technologies
Definitely.
at a local level.
Yeah. Local economies benefit from things like international collaboration.
Yeah.
And the presence of those multinational companies.
Right.
Bringing new technologies and practices.
Which can boost local innovation.
Exactly.
Okay, so job creation, economic growth, wider consumer choice,
Right.
cultural exchange, improved living standards, and the spread of technology.
Yeah.
Those are some pretty significant upsides for local economies.
They are.
But we also need to talk about the potential downsides.
We do.
What are some of the negative impacts?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is job losses.
Okay.
Increased competition from foreign companies can force local businesses to close.
Yeah. Especially in sectors where local firms can't compete on price or technology. So new jobs might be created, but existing jobs could be lost.
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
What about the impact on local culture?
That's another valid concern.
Yeah.
The influence of global brands and products. It can lead to a loss of local cultural identity.
Like a kind of homogenization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As the same brands and products become common everywhere,
Yeah.
there's a risk of losing that unique local character.
And what about the distribution of wealth within a community?
Ah, yes, that's important too.
Yeah.
The benefits of globalization might not be spread evenly.
So some people benefit more than others.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that can lead to increased income inequality.
Right. A widening gap between the rich and the poor.
Yeah. And then there's the environmental impact.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
All the production and transportation
Yeah.
associated with globalization.
Yeah.
It can contribute to pollution, resource depletion, carbon emissions.
No good.
Not good at all.
Okay, so it's a mixed bag, really.
It is.
Potential for growth and opportunity, but also risks of job losses, cultural impact, and environmental damage.
It's complex.
It is.
Yeah.
So how do businesses actually operate in this globalized world?
Well, there are a few key methods.
Okay.
One of the most basic is exporting.
So selling stuff made in your own country to customers abroad.
Exactly.
Right.
And the opposite of that is importing.
Buying things from other countries to sell here.
You got it.
Okay, so those are the basic building blocks of international trade.
Yeah, the foundation.
But what about when businesses want to get more deeply involved?
Right, when they want a more active role.
Yeah.
That's where foreign direct investment comes in.
FDI.
FDI, yeah.
Okay.
This is when a company invests directly in a foreign country.
So like setting up operations there.
Exactly.
Right.
Building factories, offices, that sort of thing.
Right.
Or acquiring an existing business in that country.
Okay, so a more permanent presence.
Yes.
What are the reasons for doing that?
Well, they might want to be closer to their customers in that market.
Okay, yeah.
Or get access to cheaper resources.
Right.
Or maybe take advantage of specific local conditions.
Okay, makes sense.
It's about making a strategic move.
And what about when companies team up with others in foreign markets?
Ah, yes. We call those joint ventures and strategic alliances.
Right.
So it's basically a partnership between two or more companies.
Okay.
They collaborate on a project or enter a new market together.
Okay.
It's a way to share resources, share the risks.
And tap into local knowledge.
Exactly.
So it's a collaborative approach.
It is.
Okay. And then there's franchising.
Oh, yeah. Franchising is huge.
Yeah, we see it everywhere.
It's a really popular way for businesses to expand internationally, especially in things like fast food and retail.
Yeah.
So one company, the franchisor,
Yeah.
grants another company, the franchisee,
Right.
the right to use their brand, their business model, their systems,
In exchange for...
a fee, and ongoing royalties.
Right.
It's a lower risk way to expand compared to setting up your own operations.
Like, think of all those familiar fast food chains you see in airports.
Exactly.
All over the world.
Franchising in action.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have e-commerce.
Ah, yes, the digital age.
The online world has made it so much easier for businesses to go global.
Yeah.
They can reach customers all over the world without needing a physical presence everywhere.
Right, just a website.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's really opened up global markets, even for small businesses.
So from exporting to setting up shop in other countries to partnering up or selling online, there are so many ways to engage with the global economy.
There are.
It's a pretty diverse landscape.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Can we look at some real-world examples
Of course.
to make all this a bit more concrete?
Absolutely.
Okay, what have we got?
Well, our sources mention a few well-known companies.
Okay.
Starbucks, for example.
Okay, yeah, they're everywhere.
They're a classic multinational corporation.
Yeah.
They have a presence in over 80 countries.
Wow.
And they adapt their menus and even their store designs to suit local tastes.
So they're not just imposing the same thing everywhere?
No, they try to blend in.
Yeah.
Another example is Nike.
Okay, yeah, global sportswear giant.
That's right.
Yeah.
They design their products in the U.S.,
Right.
but they manufacture a lot of their stuff in places like China and Vietnam.
Because it's cheaper.
Exactly. Lower production costs.
Okay, so that's a prime example of a global supply chain.
It is.
What about a UK-based company?
Okay, well, take ASOS, for example.
Yeah, the online fashion retailer.
They source clothes and accessories from all over the world, and they sell online to customers globally.
So they're not limited by geography.
Not at all.
That's the power of e-commerce.
It is.
And what about foreign direct investment coming into the UK?
Okay, well, before Brexit,
Yeah.
companies like Nissan and Toyota set up manufacturing plants here, mainly to get access to the European market.
So that's FDI bringing investment and jobs to the UK.
Exactly.
Okay, so these examples really bring it all to life.
They do.
From those complex supply chains to adapting to local markets and the impact of foreign investment.
It all connects.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what would you say is the biggest takeaway from all this?
I think the key takeaway is that globalization is a really powerful force. It's complex. It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
It offers huge opportunities for businesses.
But also big challenges.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So understanding how it all works,
Yeah.
the drivers, the exchange rates, the strategies businesses use,
Yeah.
it's essential for navigating this interconnected world.
It's not just some abstract idea.
Yeah.
It's the reality of business today.
It is.
Okay, well, this deep dive has given us a much clearer picture.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's been really insightful.
Good.
So here's a final thought for you all to consider.
Okay.
Given everything we've discussed, this interconnected world we live in,
Yeah.
what do you think is the single most important factor
Yeah.
that will shape the future of globalization?
That's a good question.
And how will businesses need to adapt to not just survive,
Right.
but to thrive?
Interesting question.
Yeah, something to ponder.
Definitely.
We hope these insights have given you a better understanding of how globalization impacts the world of business,
I think they have.
and also how these forces might be relevant to your own lives.